Yes, guys. So now that we have understood the entire provisions regarding qualifying asset and also the borrowing cost which has to be measured for eligibility to be capitalized. So now we'll have to look at the last three aspects before we conclude the standard. The last three aspects relate to, number one, commencement of capitalization, when do I start? Number two, cessation of capitalization, when do I stop? Number three, suspension of capitalization, when do I pause capitalize? Pause is different from stop. Pause is like a comma and cessation or a stop is like full stop. So let's see. First case I'm going to talk about is commencement of capitalization. When do I start capitalizing of borrowing cost to a qualifying asset? Now my start of capitalization should occur when all the following conditions are satisfied. What are all the following conditions necessary to be satisfied? Number one, there should be a borrowing cost which is incurred. Let's say, for example, I have started the construction of qualifying asset on 1st April, but my borrowing was only taken on 1st July. So what happens? During the period of April, May and June, 3 months, I was incurring an expenditure on qualifying asset, but I did not incur borrowing cost. Borrowing cost started incurring only from 1st July. So my capitalization of borrowing cost should start only from 1st July onwards, even though you have commenced the capitalization of, even though you have commenced the construction of qualifying asset on 1st April itself. First condition, that borrowing cost should be incurred. Number two, cost on the borrowing cost cost of qualifying asset should be incurred. An expenditure should be incurred on the qualifying asset. Let's say, for example, I have taken a borrowing on 1st April itself, but I did not commence any expenditure. I started the project only on 1st July. Now, just because you delayed the construction of qualifying asset, the banker will not waive off the discount that you get, the interest that you pay. So that means even during the 3 months from April to June, he expects you to pay an amount of interest. But did you incur the expenditure on qualifying asset? No. So therefore, since I am incurring a borrowing cost without incurring any expenditure on the qualifying asset, the borrowing cost is not eligible to be capitalized from April to June. The borrowing cost is only eligible to be capitalized starting from July, the date on which you started incurring expenditure on qualifying asset. First, borrowing cost should be incurred. Second one, expenditure on qualifying asset should be incurred. Number three, third one, activity necessary for the construction of qualifying asset is in progress. What do you mean by this? Activities necessary for the construction of qualifying asset is in progress. That means, let's say, I started taking a borrowing on 1st April. I am incurring borrowing costs from 1st April. I paid an advance to the supplier on 1st April from that borrowing which I have taken. However, the supplier has only supplied me the material on 30th of, let's say 30th of April at the end of the month. My construction of qualifying asset or the activity necessary for the construction of qualifying asset will only commence after the supplier has supplied the necessary material to me. So that means 1st April to 30th April, even though I incurred a borrowing cost, even though I incurred an expenditure regarding the qualifying asset, I haven't commenced any activity on the qualifying asset. I will incur an activity or I will start the activity of construction of qualifying asset only after I receive the material from the supplier. That means only after 30th of April. In such case, the borrowing cost incurred from 1st April to 30th April is not eligible to be capitalized. Clear? So, three conditions necessary. Number one, borrowing cost should be incurred. Number two, expenditure on qualifying asset should be incurred. And number three, the activity necessary for the construction of qualifying asset is in progress. Only when these three conditions are satisfied, you start capitalization of borrowing cost to the qualifying asset. Start. Commencement of capitalization of borrowing cost. When do I start capitalizing the borrowing cost? Commencement of capitalization of borrowing cost. When do I start capitalization of borrowing cost? I start this process of capitalization of borrowing cost only when all the following conditions are satisfied. All the following conditions are satisfied. What are the conditions which I am talking about? The first condition which is necessary to be satisfied for commencement of capitalization of borrowing cost is borrowing cost is incurred. Borrowing cost is incurred. First one. Second one. Expenditure on qualifying asset is incurred. Third one, activities necessary for construction of qualifying asset are in progress. I'm saying expenditure on qualifying asset is incurred, borrowing cost is incurred, and activities necessary for the construction of qualifying asset are in progress. Only if all these three conditions are satisfied, very clear the word is, all these three conditions are satisfied, that means they are separated by and, they are not separated by or. Then you start capitalization of borrowing cost. Clear? Like we have taken the examples. Let us try to understand with certain examples out here. First example that I'm going to consider. First one. Let me number it. First one. Let's say that the expenditure on qualifying asset, I'm calling it as QA, was incurred on 1st of April 2021. Borrowing was taken on 1st April, but the bank has allowed a moratorium period for 6 months. That means during that 6 months period, I will not be charged any interest because he knows that you have to start commencing your production. So he has given me a moratorium period for 6 months. You don't have to pay anything from 6 months and your repayment will start only after 6 months. That is up to 30th September 2021. In such case, capitalization should commence only from 1st October 2021. That is the date on which I will start capitalization of borrowing cost. Let's take up second one. Right? Let's understand the second one. Let's say, for example, borrowing cost was incurred from 1st April 21 itself. However, the enterprise did not start any activity on or did not incur any expenditure on the qualifying asset. Expenditure on qualifying asset is incurred from 1st of June 2021. For April and May, I haven't incurred any expenditure. I incurred the expenditure only on QA. In such cases, the borrowing cost incurred from 1st April to 1st of June 2021 is not eligible to be capitalized. Why? Because your capitalization shall commence from the date on which the expenditure was incurred, that is from 1st July. My commencement of capitalization commence only on 1st of June 2021. From that date, I will commence capitalization of borrowing cost towards qualifying asset. Last one. Last example regarding this. If let's say the borrowing cost was incurred from 1st April, borrowing cost and expenditure on qualifying asset incurred on 1st April 21, but the construction commenced on 1st May. Until then, I did not commence my construction. I was waiting for the material to be received from the supplier. In such case, borrowing cost incurred 1st April 21 up to 1st May 2021 is charged to P&L. Is charged to P&L. Capitalization should commence from 1st May, because that is the day on which activity necessary for the construction of qualifying asset is in progress. Clear? 3 examples I've taken to explain you the entire scenario, guys. Clear now? I hope this is clear right now. Now, so that we have understood what are those 3 conditions. What are those 3 conditions that we have discussed? Number 1, borrowing cost should be incurred. Number 2, expenditure on qualifying asset should be incurred. Number 3, activities necessary for the construction of qualifying asset are in progress. We've understood all 3. There's no doubt about it. Now comes the question. Now my point is, let's say I wanted to construct an office building. So I've taken a borrowing. Borrowing was about 10 crores. I've taken this borrowing on 1st April 2021. First door which I will knock is of the architect. I went to the architect and the architect said, sir, before you start this process, you have to do a soil testing. I hired an engineer for soil testing. He tested the soil and he said this much of is fine. The soil is absolutely fine for the construction. I took the soil testing report, gave it to the architect. The architect said, let's finalize the plan. So he started giving me drawings. First he did a design drawing. I said, I'm not interested in this. There's a particular software which is called as AutoCAD. AutoCAD is only used by architects for presenting their drawings. First drawing, not happy with it, let it be. Second drawing came. Then I suggested 1, 2, 3 changes. Again, third revision happened. He has actually finalized a particular plan. I said 1, 2 small changes here and there, we can go around. Like this, after 4 or 5 iterations, I finalized saying that yes, this is exactly the building I want and this is how it should look like. By the time this entire process occurred, it was, let's say, somewhere around June. On 15th of June, I've hired a contractor. Contractor has bought necessary materials into the site and started the construction of qualifying asset. Now, number 1, borrowing cost is incurred. Yes, 1st April itself you have taken the borrowing. Number 2, expenditure is incurred. Yes, soil testing, architect fees. I'm incurring expenditure starting from 1st April itself. Activity is necessary for the construction of qualifying asset is in progress. I don't know. When I go to the site, I don't even find one small piece of a brick also. The site is completely empty until 15th of June. So that means approximately for 75 days, I haven't done any construction activity. So my activity necessary for the construction of qualifying asset is only commencing after 15th June. Correct or wrong? Wrong. Your planning and designing. The planning and designing are integral parts of the construction. So therefore, even if you are in the stage of planning and designing, it shall still be considered as an activity necessary for the construction of qualifying asset. Therefore, you can commence the capitalization even during the planning and design phase. Clear? So we'll make sure that we'll write that note. Planning and designing are integral to construction of qualifying asset. Planning and designing are integral to the construction of qualifying asset. Therefore, it can be considered as activities necessary for construction of asset. Hence, borrowing cost is eligible to be capitalized Borrowing cost is eligible to be capitalized during planning and design. Planning and design is integral to the construction of qualifying asset. Therefore, it can be considered as an activity necessary for the construction of the asset. Hence, you can capitalize the borrowing cost even during the phase of planning and designing when there is no actual groundwork which is actually visible. Clear? Now, that discussion which we just had will end our discussion on construction or commencement of capitalization of borrowing cost. Then what do you mean by cessation? Cessation means stop. When I discuss about cessation, Ind AS 23 goes like this. Capitalization of borrowing cost on a qualifying asset should cease. Cease means should stop when the asset is ready for its intended use or sale. When the asset is ready for its intended use or sale. Guys, let's say I am constructing or I am in the process of constructing a property to be used as investment property. That means the intention of the enterprise is to construct the property and provide it on operating lease to independent third party. I constructed, but unfortunately the commercial leasing right now is in a very bad phase. That is how it is even post-COVID, that you find that the real estate on commercial side, especially the commercial real estate, is not as good as it was before. Because the concept of work from home has become so spectacularly successful that people are preferring to basically work from home. Not just the employees, it is more the company which is forcing people to work from home, because there is a significant saving as far as the office admin cost is concerned, the transportation of their employees is concerned, like your cab services and all. So there is a significant amount of saving. So even the companies are requesting the employees to continue to work from home, or even on a hybrid model where a few days they will come work from office and few days work from home. Now when this kind of techniques are happening, obviously the commercial real estate is not at its real best. But unfortunately, I have already started the construction and I have almost completed the construction. Unfortunately, if I stop capitalization of borrowing cost at this point of time, then the entire borrowing cost subsequently should be charged to P&L, because it is not any longer eligible to be capitalized. But I haven't found any person to take this property on lease. So I thought about it. I thought it is going to significantly impact my P&L. So I said that this asset is not ready for its intended use. The doors have to be fit. The windows are yet to be fit. Only these two activities are pending. I said that is about day or 2 days activity, not more than that. The owner or the enterprise has thought cleverly, and they made sure they were only fitting one window per day. Is the activity in progress? Yes. Activity should be at this pace or this pace. Nothing specified. Activity is in progress or not? Very much in progress. I can continue to capitalize. He like that capitalized for another 1 year. Finally, he identified a person who is ready to take this premises on operating lease. I have written a lease agreement. I fit all the windows remaining on one single day. I pulled out of the premises and I said, stop capitalizing. So therefore, if I leave space in defining what is a stop, if I leave even a little space, then people will interpret it to their own advantage. They will interpret it to their own advantage. That is the reason why the standard had to be a little more stringent on when to stop capitalizing. That's why he comes up with a statement in a little changed manner. What did I say earlier? Capitalization of borrowing cost should cease when the asset is ready for its intended use or sale. Slight change. Capitalization of borrowing cost should cease when the asset is substantially ready for its intended use or sale. So what is the word which got inserted? Substantially ready. Instead of calling it as ready, he used the word substantially ready. That is because he wanted to make sure that people are not abusing the use of this paragraph to their own advantage. What is substantially ready? Almost ready. 80% or 90% substantially ready. I don't wait until you are completely ready. Even if you are almost ready, I will say stop the capitalization. There is no particular metric to say this is substantial and this is not. We don't have a metric, but it completely depends upon your general common sense. Clear? Talking about cessation of capitalization. Cessation of capitalization. When do I stop capitalizing? Words go on to say something like this. Capitalization of borrowing cost on a qualifying asset should cease when the asset is substantially ready. For its intended use or sale. Stopping the abusive use of this paragraph by inserting the word substantially ready. Almost ready is sufficient. You don't have to make sure that the asset is completely ready for its intended use. Substantially, almost. Not explained, however. As far as what is substantial, what is substantial? This word, what is substantial, has not been defined in the standard. So don't go as per the definitions. Try to apply logics and common sense in defining what is substantially ready. Clear? So that will bring us to the end of discussion in point number 2, or the second aspect regarding cessation of capitalization. We started with commencement of capitalization. Now we saw cessation of capitalization, when the capitalization on the borrowing cost should cease. Guys, after seizure, borrowing cost is still incurred, right? Because the term loan is taken for 10 years. Your construction was only for 2 years. After 2 years, borrowing cost is also still incurred in year 3, year 4 and so on until 10 years. But it is not eligible to be capitalized. Therefore, borrowing cost incurred subsequently should be charged to P&L. After you stop capitalization, it should be subsequently charged to P&L. It is no longer eligible to be capitalized. Clear? Now let's start looking at the third aspect. First one, was commencement of capitalization. Second one was cessation of capitalization or stop. And the last one which I'm talking about is suspension. What do you mean by suspension of capitalization? Suspension means a temporary period you don't capitalize the borrowing cost for a temporary period. Now, why does this temporary period gap arises? What are the circumstances in which you have to suspend capitalization? An enterprise should suspend the capitalization of borrowing cost when the active development of the qualifying asset is interrupted. I'll have to suspend the capitalization when the active development of qualifying asset is interrupted. If I put a full stop there, think about an enterprise which is only working for 5 days a week. So approximately in a year, I have about 52 weeks. So at the same time, 52 weekends. 52 weekends is 104 days. Apart from that, Gandhi Jayanti, Nehru Jayanti, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Jayanti, so many things are there. National holidays, Independence Day, Republic Day, so many things are there. Apart from that, religious festivals. Yes, Hindu religion, 30 festivals. Muslim religion, another 10 festivals. Christianity, another 10 festivals. We have Buddhism, Jain, so many religions in the country. Every religion, every festival, we will celebrate with equal enthusiasm. That is the best part of being in India. Being an Indian, we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Ramzan, we celebrate Diwali as well. The same enthusiasm with which we celebrate each of them. So the same way, holidays are also in a similar manner. Ganesh Chaturthi holiday, Ganesh Nimarjan another holiday. So if you look at the entire roundabout, you are looking at so many multiple holidays that we get. In and all, let's say the total number of weekends plus total number of holidays put together is 120. I'm restricting it, okay? In general sense, it's much more than that. This is apart from your leaves you take, okay? That is again separate. So 120. How many days in a year? 360. How many days you are not working? 120. Perfectly 1/3. You don't have to work. Perfectly 1/3. I am not necessary to work at all. So qualifying asset activity is running only for 246 days or 245 days. Balance 120 days, the active development is interrupted because the enterprise is on a holiday. That means, if I go with the same paragraph that we discussed, this capitalization of borrowing cost should be suspended when active development of the qualifying asset is interrupted. Then for that 120 days period for which you are eligible to avail leave or where you are eligible to basically not work, then the active development is interrupted. Therefore, to that extent of 120 days, I am not eligible to capitalize during a particular year. Is my conclusion correct? No. Why is your conclusion not correct? That is what you said, right? Suspend capitalization of borrowing cost to a qualifying asset should be suspended when active development is interrupted. When the active development of the asset is interrupted for an extended period of time. What is this extended period of time? Extended period of time goes beyond your Gandhi Jayantis and Independence Days and beyond your weekends. An extended period of time is much larger than a normal length. Much larger than a normal length. That means they are generally unscheduled. For example, the cost of the construction was estimated at 10 crores. I have arranged a borrowing. I started the construction. Towards somewhere in the middle of the construction, I understood that the construction cost is not 10 but 15. I burnt out all the bank loan which I got, but still the construction is not ready. Therefore, I stopped the active work until I can arrange for further funds. I approached the bank again. I gave him a revised project report. He certified it and gave me further funds. But during this process, for about 2 months, due to lack of funds, I have actually stopped active development of this. For that 2 months period, which is prolonged period, I have to make sure that the capitalization is suspended. Clear? There's a strike in the factory. I don't know how many of you remember, but during 2000 2010 to 2020, we had a massive strike in Maruti Suzuki showroom in Manesar plant in UP, where the active development was interrupted for almost 6 months. All your Maruti Suzuki vehicles were in waiting for more than 6 months for the customers. Now, such time, if there's a qualifying asset which is in progress, even the qualifying asset was not being constructed, which will in turn lead to suspension of capitalization during that 6 months period. A lockdown was announced during the COVID crisis. During that period, where there was a lockdown in that particular state or throughout the country, no active development was happening on the qualifying asset. Lockdown extended for almost 2 to 3 months, or some places much beyond that. During this period, when there is no active development on the asset, it is not eligible to be capitalized. So therefore, the borrowing cost incurred during such period has to be charged off to P&L and is not eligible to be capitalized. This is our discussion on suspension of capitalization. Let us start. Suspension of capitalization. When should I stop? Suspend. Capitalization of borrowing cost on a qualifying asset should be suspended when active development of qualifying asset is interrupted for an extended period of time. When active development of asset is interrupted for an extended period of time. What is this extended period of time I'm talking about? This extended period is basically beyond normal length. This is beyond normal length and generally arises in extraordinary cases or extraordinary circumstances. What do you mean by extraordinary circumstances? Extraordinary circumstances are basically other than normal course of business. Like if I have to give an example, strike by employees, or you have stopped it for shortage of funds, or for lockdown, owing to a deadly virus. These are circumstances which are beyond normal Okay, that do not occur in a normal course of business beyond normal. In such case, when there is a when the active development is interrupted, I'll have to suspend the capitalization of borrowing cost on the qualifying asset. So capitalization of borrowing cost on qualifying asset should be suspended when active development of the asset is interrupted for an extended period of time. Extended period is beyond normal length and shall occur only in extraordinary circumstances, something like a strike or a lockdown or a shortage of funds the company has interrupted the service. Sometimes, I'm not saying always, I'm saying sometimes, a pause in the active development of the qualifying asset is necessary. Sometimes it is necessary, or a suspension of active development is necessary for the construction of qualifying asset. In such cases, even though the active development is interrupted, the capitalization of borrowing cost should not be suspended. Can you give me examples? I'm saying an interruption in active development of a qualifying asset is sometimes necessary for the construction of the qualifying asset. In such circumstances, capitalization should not be suspended. What are those circumstances where active development should be interrupted for the completion of the asset? Let's say construction of a building. You basically make sure that the slab is laid down at one floor and you wait for the slab to set. You wait for the slab to set. You don't do any active development during that time. You basically make sure that water is poured. This is called as curing technique. So a curing is done, water is basically poured and you let it set for about 3 to 4 days without doing any active development. Subsequent to that 1 week time, they again start the construction activity. Such kind of pauses, such kind of interruption in active development is necessary for the construction of qualifying asset. If I don't do this curing technique and if I continuously keep on laying slabs, automatically the building will collapse. Because the structure needs solidity. So it will only gain its strength when it is let aside for some period of time. These kind of activities will generally be called as activities which are interrupted, but such interruption being necessary for the construction of qualifying asset. In such cases, suspension is not necessary. You can continue to capitalize borrowing cost on the qualifying asset. Let me write down. In certain situations, interruption in active development of the asset is necessary for construction of asset. During such interruption, capitalization of borrowing costs need not be suspended. Capitalization of borrowing cost need not be suspended when such interruption is necessary for the active development of the asset. Then in such cases, it is not necessary for you to suspend the capitalization during such interruption, because such interruption is necessary for the construction of qualifying asset. Therefore, that will bring us to the end of discussion on these three topics. First one was commencement of capitalization, suspension, cessation of capitalization. We have seen what is the definition of borrowing cost. We have seen what do you mean by exchange differences. To an extent, they can be regarded as borrowing cost, which was in reference to IND AS 21. We have seen what is the objective of the standard to capitalize the borrowing cost. We have also seen the amount of borrowing cost which is eligible to be capitalized. Then we have seen these three conditions that will bring us to the end of this very small and brief standard that we had to discuss. Here, that will bring us to the end of the standard, guys. So we will have to look at ITFGs and illustrations apart from solving workbooks, additions to study material and compendium of solved illustrations. Let's get up for that.